So we're here to talk through Prasanna's Kuromasu puzzle. It's a style that has a fair bit in common with cave puzzles, at least on the larger number end, but it has some unique logic on the small number end, and so this puzzle will be a way to highlight some general rules and also some specific rules. Um, with this puzzle, one place to start, just as in a cave puzzle, would be with something like this 12 clue, which can have as many as 10 in the same row, so it has to see two more cells in this column. And now, also like in a cave puzzle, there's a limit to how many this number can see in this column. So outside of this row, there are as many as 4 more, for a total of 5. So with 4 out of the column, this needs at least 8 in this row. And so you can make a mark like this and say that if the 12 didn't see at least to this spot, or at least to this spot, you can never fulfill it. And that's going to be pretty common deduction for other styles, as I say, like cave. But with this puzzle, it's useful to know some of the differences that come from small numbers, and that really arises from the fact that the unused cells, the shaded cells in Kuromasu, can't have neighbors that are also shaded. So around a 2, there's a deduction that diagonal cells can't be shaded. And the reason is something like this. If this cell is shaded, then the cell to its left and to its top are both unused and collectively are going to make a set of 3 cells seen by the 2. And this would be true of any of the diagonal spots for that 2. So what consequently is true around any 2 is that diagonally adjacent cells must be white. And when you have a situation where a number, particularly a 3, can extend into this spot, you'll see that the same kind of diagonal rule can apply here for this group. For instance, if this is shaded, then this 3 now sees all of these cells as well as all of those cells. And you can mark a fair number of cells as white for that region. So this is white because that would be too many. This is white because either this 3 or this 3 would see too many. This is white because the situation here would be too many. Now that that's marked, this must be white, or this would be too many. This must be white for that group of 4. This must be white, and this must be white. And one of the immediate consequences of that is you can shade these 2 cells in on the 2. That's maybe not as important as something else that's going to follow. But what it means, one or the other of these cells will be shaded. This corner is going to break connectivity. So there's going to be a side that's coming down the left here and a side that's coming over to the right here. But these aren't going to connect except through the middle of the grid. And that suggests that there's a limitation with some of the cells around this 3 diamond. And you may have actually looked at this 3 diamond sooner. Something that's true about it, for instance, is the middle cell can't be white. If the middle cell were white, all of the cells around it end up being shaded and you get an enclosed region. So the center of it has to be shaded. That concept of putting shaded cells around a group really applies right here, and one of the hardest steps for me was initially seeing that this has to be a shaded cell. So let's see the alternative. If it's not shaded, then these 2 to the bottom and left of the 3 clue here, and these to the right and top of the 3 clue here are shaded. And now we've enclosed this whole blue group. We already said it can't connect through to the top, and so what we've done is isolated the grid. And consequently, what we should really be able to mark is that the 3s don't see to this cell. This 3 now must see at least 1 cell below. And a notation I like to use in cave puzzles as well as these puzzles is when I know one of the next few cells is going to be shaded, I'll mark that in. In this case, this cell or that cell, but not both, is going to be shaded because the 3 can't extend all the way through. It's going to end in the cell it currently ends with 1 more there, or it's going to come down 3 and end here. This 3 is already seeing 2 cells, so it also has a mark that's going to end in this spot. And together, these 2 must form a pattern, which is the upper left, lower right, or lower left, upper right. These can't be in adjacent cells. And so the 5 could come over at most 1 more cell, or it could get 0 more cells in this column, but it can't extend 2 full squares. And so if we count up now, 1, 2, 3, at most 4, the fifth cell has to be at the top. And that quickly gives this. You'll see the 3 is now fulfilled. You can also see the 5 can't extend up because it would take 6 cells. So you get something like this. The top region here still has to connect. We said the connection had to be through the middle, so this cell here must be used. If it weren't used, you couldn't get this group out back. Outside, that sets us to here. With 3 cells already given, this one can't be used. This group still needs to connect to the rest of the grid, so the same reason this cell is white is the same reason that cell is white. The top group, which now is blocked off in almost all spots, has to extend to the right at least one more. You'll see that now it spends all of the 4 cells that this sees. Get to a spot like this. Now there is a different way to deal with the 2, at least immediately up here, and it works down here as well, which is that this cell here, I'll just mark the diagonal ones in, this cell here has to use one of these 2 cells to get out. And whichever one it uses is going to be the second cell seen by the 2. So consequently, the left and top are cells that are shaded. And now we get to a particular kind of situation, which is, can this 3 extend down? And if the 3 extends down, it can't use either of these cells. What I'll have you notice is the 7 is large enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7th cell for it must be one of these 2 cells. It either is extending down or extending to the right to be able to get 7 total, which means you can't have the 3 only use this column. So the second hardest deduction, if this was a hard deduction here, the mirror spot over here is the second hardest in this puzzle to get moving. The 5 has to see at least 2 more to the top to get a total in there. That now finishes off the 3 clue. The 4 is currently seeing 3 cells. This is the 4th. Connectivity and not shading adjacent black cells gets you there. The 6 is seeing 6 cells. Now that's seeing enough cells is seeing enough cells. Now we have the top of the grid mostly filled, and notice this is the only spot out for it. And just as in the upper left, this side can't connect to this side. It's going to have to connect through the middle, which means that one of these 2 cells has to be used. If they're both shaded, the puzzle's cut off. Notice whichever of these is used, it's going to finish the 5 clue. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the cell to the left is shaded. That's now stranding this middle group. So it has to be used here, otherwise this doesn't get out. That finishes shading here. The 12 now sees 12 cells. So we shade that in, and we finish this Kuromasu. It's a pretty challenging puzzle for the style, but some of that's just if you're not familiar with some of the rules, particularly around small numbers, like all the white cells we marked in this corner is something that's unique to Kuromasu, but important to know. And then it really had some cool connectivity tricks in the 2 corners, and I liked how in both the start and end of the puzzles, knowing how we wrap around the 2s in the corners was pretty critical. So hope you learned something from this walkthrough, and we'll see you again soon.